Johan! Over here! The day of the reunion had arrived. After checking in at the entrance and walking into the room, the first person to notice me was Keith, my old teammate from the tennis club. Who called out to me. As I waved and walked towards Keith, a group of our old tennis teammates, who had already arrived, were gathered in a circle. Hey, Johan! Long time no see, my old tennis buddies greeted me one after another. And we felt the excitement as we took turns putting our arms around each other's shoulders, laughing together. At the milestone age of 30, it was great to see my high school classmates again. As I looked around, I noticed a crowd of my classmates a little further ahead. I'll catch up with the tennis buddies first, then I'll join the classmates, I thought to myself. At that moment, it happened. Oh my, Johan, you're here too. A woman walked briskly into my line of sight and said that. It was Naomi, my ex-girlfriend, with her perfectly set hair and fancy makeup. Naomi and I had a bad breakup, which was a dark chapter in my life. I almost blurted out, ugh. But managed to hold it back just in time. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, Keith tried to smooth things over. Well, Naomi. You look more beautiful than ever. Keith said, probably just to be polite. However, Naomi took it as a compliment and started bragging. Thanks, Keith. Actually, I'm getting married. My fiancé is super rich. It's a classic Cinderella story. Naomi bragged with a mean smile on her face. Keith quickly replied, well, congratulations. Since Keith had spoken, I thought I didn't need to say anything, so I stayed silent. Then Naomi turned to me and said, Johan, say something too. Feeling annoyed, I reluctantly said, congratulations. Is he the guy with the penthouse you mentioned 5 years ago? I remembered when she had told me her boyfriend lived in a penthouse. Naomi proudly replied, I broke up with him right away. My current fiancé is even wealthier. I see. Since I had no jealousy or interest in Naomi's marriage, I could only respond that way. Naomi, apparently dissatisfied with my reaction, said, Ha, are you jealous that your ex is marrying rich? You still look poor in those plain clothes. I bet you're still living in that run-down apartment. It's pathetic for a 30-year-old. Meanwhile, I'll be living in a mansion on the Upper East Side. Right after Naomi finished boasting, she looked out towards the entrance through the large glass window. A luxury car just pulled up. Did my fiancé buy a new car without telling me? She wondered, staring intently at the car. Keith and I also looked out the window, and we saw a woman stepping out of the car and walking towards the entrance. Heading into the reunion room where we were. She's gorgeous. Who is she? Keith muttered. The woman looked around the room as if searching for someone. As I started to feel nervous, she noticed me and approached. Mr. Baxter, I'm here to pick you up. The beautiful woman said to me. She was Yvonne, a famous fashion model. The classmates in the room buzzed with excitement. I began to explain. Johan, you got a letter. It's an invitation to your high school reunion. My mom said when she called after a long time. My name is Johan. I'm 30 years old, single, and moved out of my parents' house a few years ago to live alone. Thanks for letting me know. I said to my mom, noting down the details about the date, location, and how to contact the organizer. The reunion was set for a weekend in 3 months. The location was an event space in a hotel near my high school. The organizer was Keith, who was the captain of our tennis club, so I could get in touch with someone from the tennis club to connect personally. I remember the time from over a decade ago, when I was around 17 years old. High school is often imagined as a time of sparkling youth, but in reality, it wasn't exactly like that, I thought again. The boys' tennis club, as the name suggests, was filled with nothing but sweaty memories of high school boys who had grown into their bodies. I think there was also a girls' tennis team, but we never practiced together, and I have no memory of any interaction. But, well, those 3 years were a mix of fun and unpleasant moments, just like for everyone else. Although we didn't achieve any remarkable results in the tennis tournaments, stopping by the convenience store on the way back from club activities, buying food and drinks with our limited allowances, and hanging out with friends on days off were good memories. It's not like there were no girls at all. I did date a girl who confessed to me when I was a senior student. But, honestly, I still don't know if that was a real romance, and since it left a bad taste, it's hard to call it a sweet memory. And I started thinking about Naomi. Naomi, a student from the class next door. We had never spoken until the summer of our senior year. But she started talking to me on the way back from the supplemental classes we both began attending during the summer break. You're Johan from class 3, right? I'm Naomi from class 2. Did you start coming to this class from the summer? I remember being surprised by the sudden conversation and responding awkwardly, oh, yeah. Can I walk home with you? She said, and started walking next to me, chatting as we walked the 10 minutes to the station. I didn't know what to talk about, but she kept the conversation going, and before I knew it, we were talking about various things. My parents are pushing me to go to Women's College, so I'm planning to take the entrance exam there. What about you, Johan? When she asked that, I replied, well, I'm aiming for K College, naming the prestigious college I was aspiring to at the time. Wow, that's amazing. You're so smart. You're always serious in the supplemental classes and you answer the questions correctly when the teacher calls on you. I really respect that. She said, complimenting me. It didn't feel bad to be praised by a girl, but looking back now, I realize I was just an inexperienced and naive high school boy. Encouraged by Naomi's proactive approach, she confessed to me at the end of summer, and we started dating. Since it was the summer of our senior year, and we were aiming for college entrance exams, I hesitated to start a relationship at that time. I wanted to focus on studying, so I told her that I wouldn't have time for dates. But she said, I won't interfere with your exam preparation. Let's date as a good study break for both of us. Please, she insisted. I didn't mind talking with Naomi, and half pushed into it, we started dating. At first, our relationship was easy, like talking on the phone briefly during breaks from studying or walking home together from the supplemental classes as usual. Hey, Johan. What are you doing now? A couple of months into our relationship, Naomi started calling me more frequently. When I was studying at home before bed, she would suddenly call me. As the exams approached and I was getting frustrated with not seeing my results improve, her calls began to interfere with my studies. I told her clearly, Naomi, we agreed not to interfere with each other's exam preparations. I've told you many times that this time at night is for studying. I can't talk now. But Naomi responded, but we're dating. It's normal to talk on the phone at night. While I prioritized studying and saw our relationship as something to fit into that schedule, Naomi seemed to think differently. It was different from what we initially agreed upon, and I was troubled. When I tried to discuss it with her, she got angry, and we ended up arguing. Do you not love me? She would say, crying on the phone, making it impossible for me to hang up, and my study time kept getting taken away. Not only was my study time reduced, but my sleep was also being compromised. With the entrance exams approaching, I was panicking. I'm sorry. Let's break up. I told her 4 months into our relationship. Of course, my reason was to focus on my exams. But she was adamant about not breaking up. I was at a loss. Was I in the wrong? I questioned myself. I thought I had been sincere with her. But I couldn't accept a life where I couldn't go to college because I prioritized our relationship over studying. There's no need to pass on the first try, she said, refusing to change her stance no matter how much I tried to talk to her. Feeling cornered, I resorted to a last-ditch effort. I stopped answering her calls. At first, I would let the phone ring and wait for the ringtone to stop, but eventually, I couldn't handle the stress and started turning off my phone. The next day, at school or supplemental classes, Naomi would confront me, saying, "It's terrible that you don't answer my calls." Even though I wanted to break up, she wouldn't agree, and I felt like I was in hell. Then Naomi finally started attacking me. She began spreading bad rumors about me among our school friends. Ignoring her calls was true, but she also made up lies. Johan is dating a student from another school while still with me. Naomi spread such false rumors to her friends. Not everyone believed it, but some girls who did ignored me at school events, making me feel bad. During this crucial exam period, Naomi's behavior messed with my mental state, and I failed to get into my first choice college. I heard through the grapevine that Naomi got into a less competitive women's college and went there, but by the time she graduated, We weren't speaking anymore. Most of my memories with her were terrible, and it definitely became a dark chapter in my life. That was a disaster. A youthful mistake. Well, it's good to experience such relationships when you're young so you can avoid them later. Think of it as a learning experience. My brother Mason told me. I hadn't shared details about her with him, but when he worried about me failing repeatedly on the entrance exams, I finally told him the whole story the spring after I graduated high school. Instead of crying with me, Mason laughed and said, "That's awful," which surprised me. Well, being 4 years older, with more life experience, my troubles probably seemed minor to him. However, even though I'm an adult, I still can't laugh about it. A dark chapter. It might be a funny story for others, but for me, it remains a painful memory. A few years later, I moved out of my parents' house at 25 and started living alone. I was busy with work back then, just commuting between my workplace and home, but something happened that reminded me of that dark chapter. Oh no. Is that Johan? One morning, while heading to the station from my apartment to go to work, I heard a familiar voice calling my name. Even though I was in a hurry, I turned around since someone called my name. Naomi? It was Naomi, looking more flashy than she did in high school. I felt a mix of not wanting to get involved with her again and a slight curiosity about her current situation. Did you just come out of that rundown apartment? Oh no, do you live there? Naomi said, looking up at me. Yeah. I replied, feeling annoyed by her remark. It looks like an old, rundown apartment. I always wondered who lived there, and I can't believe it's you, Johan. She said condescendingly. You always wondered? Do you live around here too? I didn't want to talk, but if she lived nearby, I needed to know to be cautious, so I asked. No. My boyfriend lives there, Naomi said, pointing at the condo across the station. Then, without me asking, she continued, his parents run a company, and they bought him the top floor of the building. I stay over most weekends and sometimes on weekdays, like today. Unlike you, he makes plenty of time for me and is rich and very kind. Okay, that sounds great. Well, I'm going to be late for work, so I'll go, I said, and ran to the station, leaving Naomi, who still looked like she wanted to say more, behind. She was bragging about her rich boyfriend, but since it was his parents who were wealthy, it didn't seem like much of a brag. Well, it doesn't matter now who Naomi is dating. As I got on the train, I reflected that when I said it sounds great, I wasn't being sarcastic but genuinely meant it. I was glad that her current boyfriend made time for her, unlike me. But Naomi's condescending attitude showed how much her personality had twisted, which was unfortunate. I didn't care about being looked down on, I was still myself. However, I thought it would be troublesome to run into her again at the station. The past with Naomi isn't quite a trauma, but meeting her brings back bad memories from those days. So I thought it was better for me to avoid her as much as possible. Fortunately, I didn't see her again, and I moved to another place 6 months later, thinking it was all settled. 5 years passed, and at 30, the memories of my dark past had faded even more. Then came the reunion invitation. Skipping the reunion because I didn't want to see Naomi felt like losing. I wanted to believe I didn't care that much anymore and wanted to see my old tennis teammates and classmates. I got Keith's contact info through our tennis alumni network and reached out to him. Long time no see. I'll be attending the reunion. I messaged Keith, who quickly replied, really? Looking forward to seeing you, Johan. Most of the tennis buddies are coming too. I was thrilled and couldn't wait for the day to come. Finally, the day of the reunion arrived. I had almost forgotten about Naomi and was excited to see my old friends as I headed to the venue. Johan! Over here! After checking in and entering the room, Keith was the first to notice me and called out. As I waved and walked over to Keith, a group of our tennis buddies who had already arrived were gathered in a circle. Hey, Johan! Long time no see, my old tennis friends greeted me one by one. And we felt the excitement as we took turns putting our arms around each other's shoulders, laughing together. It was great to see my high school classmates again at this milestone age of 30. As I looked around, I noticed a crowd of my classmates a little further ahead. Once I'm done catching up with the tennis buddies, I'll join the classmates, I thought to myself. At that moment, it happened. "Oh my, Johan, you are here too," a woman said as she walked briskly into my line of sight. It was Naomi, with her curled hair and fancy makeup. I almost blurted out, "Ugh," but managed to hold it back just in time. Sensing the awkwardness, Keith quickly intervened. Well, Naomi. You've become even more beautiful," Keith said, likely just being polite. But Naomi took it as a compliment and started bragging even more. "Thanks, Keith. Actually, I'm getting married. My fiancé is super rich. It's what you'd call a Cinderella story," Naomi bragged with a mean smile on her face. Keith promptly replied, "Congratulations." Since Keith had spoken, I thought I didn't need to say anything, but then Naomi said, "Johan, say something too." Feeling annoyed, I reluctantly said, "Congratulations. Is he the guy with the penthouse from 5 years ago?" Naomi replied smugly, "I broke up with him right away. My current fiancé is even wealthier." "Oh, I see." I had no jealousy or interest in Naomi's fiancé, so I could only respond that way. Naomi, seemingly dissatisfied with my reaction, said, "Ha, are you jealous that your ex is marrying rich? You still look poor in those plain clothes. I bet you're still living in that rundown apartment. It's pathetic for a 30-year-old. Meanwhile, I'll be living in a mansion in an upscale neighborhood." Right after boasting, Naomi looked out towards the entrance through the large glass window. A luxury car just pulled up. Did my fiancé buy a new car without telling me? She wondered, staring intently at the car. Keith and I also looked out the window, and we saw a woman stepping out of the car and walking towards the entrance, heading into the reunion room where we were. "She's gorgeous." "Who is she?" Keith muttered. The woman looked around the room as if searching for someone. As I started to feel nervous, she noticed me and approached. "Mr. Baxter, I'm here to pick you up," the beautiful woman said to me. It was Yvonne. "Yvonne, the reunion is just starting. Did I give you the wrong time?" I said to her. Yvonne replied, "What? Did I mess up?" and hurriedly checked her planner. "You're right. I wrote 4 p.m., but I came early by mistake," she said. I apologized to the panicked Yvonne. "I'm sorry, I should have double-checked as well. Sorry for the trouble." Seeing this interaction, Naomi turned pale and muttered, "No way." She then said to me, "Isn't that the famous fashion model Yvonne? Why is she here? And what does she mean by Mr. Baxter?" Keith exclaimed, "Oh wow. I thought she looked familiar. She's Yvonne the fashion model." "She's gorgeous," Keith said. Our classmates started to buzz and gathered around, curious and excited. I whispered to Yvonne, "Yvonne, could you please leave for now? I'm really sorry." Yvonne nodded yes and said quietly, "Okay. See you later," and left the venue. As soon as Yvonne left, a crowd of classmates surrounded me. It looked like Yvonne was safely escorted to her car by her assistant. "Hey, Johan. Explain. Who is Mr. Baxter? And what's your relationship with Yvonne?" Naomi demanded, leaning forward. For the sake of Keith and the curious classmates, I decided to explain. "Who's Mr. Baxter?" "Well, that's me," I said, handing out my business card. "The CEO of Flower Tears Inc. Isn't that the famous apparel company?" "Johan, you're the CEO." "No way." I didn't care if Naomi believed it or not and continued explaining. "Yvonne is the image model for our brand," I said. Keith asked, "I get that, but why did a model come to pick you up?" Naomi chimed in, "Yeah, why? Actually, Yvonne and I got married last month." "I wasn't hiding it," I said. "And today, we plan to go on a date after the reunion, so our driver was supposed to pick me up with Yvonne at the end. Yvonne just played along as my assistant for fun." The driver and Yvonne's manager were also in the car, I added. My classmates were buzzing, but Naomi was especially loud, shouting, "No way. Johan marrying Yvonne. That's impossible." I was exasperated by Naomi's disbelief. 5 years ago, you were living in that rundown apartment. It's weird. Naomi continued. Back then, the company was just getting started, so I was saving money. I only went home to sleep. So I chose a cheap apartment close to the station. Now, I bought a condo and live there with Yvonne. The company is doing well, I explained. Keith said, more than well, your company is hugely successful. You never appeared in the media, so no one knew it was you. I remember you studying business strategies after failing the college entrance exam, impressive. Yeah, I retook the exam and got into the top college in the country, T College, but I started my business while still in college. So I didn't attend much. I managed to graduate, though. I replied to Keith. Naomi, trying to regain control, said, so what? You must have gone to a low-ranked college. My boyfriend graduated from the prestigious S College. Keith immediately responded. Didn't you know? Johan went to T College, the toughest to get into. Naomi kept repeating, no way. No way. I couldn't understand why Naomi was so desperate to belittle me. If it satisfied her to think she was superior, that was fine, but facts are facts. Just then, another luxury car arrived at the entrance. This time, it wasn't my car, so I had no idea who it was. Seeing the car, Naomi exclaimed, that's my darling Cody's car. He's here to pick me up. She added, the reunion is still going, but it's boring here, so I'm leaving. Naomi started to head out of the room. The man who got out of the luxury car walked towards Naomi. Naomi. You told me to come here after 3 p.m., but it seems the reunion is still going on. Why did you call me here? Cody asked her. Because I wanted to introduce you to my classmates since we're getting married. Naomi replied confidently. Then Cody said, when did I say we're getting married? We met on a matchmaking site and discussed looking for serious relationships. But during our last date, I told you I needed to think about it. But we had 3 dates, and they were fun. I thought you accepted me as your future wife. Naomi argued. You really tend to get the wrong idea. That's exactly the problem. You only asked about my income, savings, and house. I answered patiently. But it made me uncomfortable. I won't see you again. I'm officially ending our relationship here, Cody said clearly. He said that in a strong tone, then turned around, got into his car, and drove away. Naomi was left standing there in shock. I was dumbfounded. Despite all her boasting about landing a wealthy partner, they weren't even dating. Naomi sat down on the spot, looking devastated. When Yvonne arrived at the venue, the classmates who had gathered out of curiosity had already dispersed, chatting with those they wanted to talk to. However, one classmate had been watching our interaction the entire time. Naomi, would you like to have a coffee with me sometime? Even today would be fine. I've always wanted to talk to you, said David, who was never the type to stand out, neither in school nor now. Quiet, serious, and unassuming, he wasn't the kind of guy who was popular with the girls. But we guys always liked him because he was genuinely a good guy. Naomi glared at David with teary eyes. But David was undeterred and insisted, how about it? To cheer you up, maybe after this? Keith and I quietly left the scene. I can't believe it. David making a move on Naomi. Keith said. I agreed, yeah, really. For a moment, I felt a strange uneasiness deep inside, but I shook it off, thinking it was just my imagination. And joined the group of former classmates from our class. A few days after that reunion. It was my mother's birthday, so I went home to see her. I was always too busy to go home, so I wanted to show up once in a while. Mason was also there. He works for a company, is married, and moved to another state a long time ago. As soon as he saw me, he asked, so, you had a class reunion, huh? Did you go? Was it fun? I realized that my mother had probably mentioned the reunion to him because the invitation was sent to her house. Yeah, I did. It was nice to see everyone again, I replied. But Mason kept grinning, looking like he had something to say. You dated that troublemaker back in high school, right? I remember. Did she show up? He asked eagerly. Reluctantly, I told him about how Naomi had been boasting about her wealthy partner, only for it to turn out not to be true. And how she seemed displeased to find out I was a company CEO. I expected Mason to laugh, but instead, he suddenly got serious and said, "I hope Naomi finds happiness." "Why would you say that?" I asked, puzzled. "I thought you'd laugh." "Maybe it's because I'm getting older," he said, with a mysterious expression. When I mentioned David making a move on Naomi, Mason said, "Wow. They seem like they'd make a great couple." I was even more confused. What was going through Mason's mind, I wondered, as he said, "You're an adult now, so I'm going to be blunt. You keep telling yourself that everything was Naomi's fault, but deep down, you regret just a little bit that you couldn't make her happy. She genuinely loved you and just wanted to be with you. Which is why she honestly expressed her feelings by saying, 'I want you to prioritize me over studying.' It was pure, bittersweet high school love. Both of you were stubborn and didn't admit your true feelings, which made things complicated. She boasted about dating someone better than you. And you pretended not to care about her anymore. Of course, there's no need to get back together now, it's just a clumsy, youthful mistake. A part of your past. But if someone else can make Naomi happy where you couldn't, you'd genuinely be happy for her. Go ahead. Ask yourself honestly." I listened to his words in silence, feeling both accepting and conflicted. However, I had to admit that his final statement about being genuinely happy if someone else could make Naomi happy was spot on. Mason often says things that seem presumptuous, but he tends to be right, which is both annoying and humbling. About a year later, I received a call from my mother. "There's a letter for you from someone written Naomi," she said as soon as I answered. I was so shocked that I dropped my phone. Quickly picking it up and making sure the call hadn't ended, I continued talking to my mother, who said she would forward the letter to my place. A few days later, I found Naomi's letter in my mailbox. With nervous hands, I opened it and read the following. "I couldn't find your contact information, so I sent this letter to your parents' house. Johan. I'm sorry for being selfish and interfering with your studies back in high school. And I'm truly sorry for making snide comments and looking down on you when we met again as adults. I was immature. I realize now, at this age, that my childish behavior was because I wanted your attention and wanted you to notice me. This letter isn't about wanting your attention now. I just wanted to apologize and make amends. When I heard that you had become the CEO of a major company and married a famous fashion model, I was jealous. But now, I find it embarrassing to care about such titles and to boast. I genuinely respect and support you now." After that reunion, I talked with David, and I gradually became attracted to his sincerity and kindness. We're now dating with the intention of getting married. I feel at peace in this relationship, and I owe it all to him. It was David who encouraged me to write this letter. He noticed that I was still hung up on you and suggested that I write it down. I'm sending you this letter for my own closure, and if it bothers you, please feel free to discard it without reading. But if you have read it, thank you. As I read the letter, I never once felt uncomfortable. The lingering uneasiness within me vanished completely. I closed the letter and whispered, "Thank you." That gratitude was not only for Naomi but also for David and Yvonne. I thought about writing a reply and picked up a pen, but then I put it down, realizing I couldn't quite express myself properly. Maybe someday, I'll receive news of David and Naomi's marriage. By then, I hope to have grown enough to say something meaningful. With my hand on my heart, I resolved to improve myself.